Good afternoon, everyone. This is Valerie Cape at CMQCC. I'd like to welcome you to the webinar. We're glad to have you with us today to learn about huddles. I have a few housekeeping notes that you can see on the screen. All the lines have been muted to eliminate the background noise. The webinar is being recorded and it will be posted on the CMQCC YouTube channel for additional viewing shortly after the webinar, maybe later this afternoon or tomorrow. Questions will be taken at the end of the webinar, and you can post your questions in the chat function or the Q&A function of the platform. With that being said for housekeeping, I'd like to turn the time over to Christa Sakowski, who will be presenting today. Christa is CMQCC's clinical lead. She has been involved with our C-section collaborative, heading that up, and also has been intimately involved in the development of the HUDLS program and content. So Christa, I will turn it over to you.
Thanks so much, Valerie. So I hope everybody can hear me very well. I'm really excited to share with you all about HUDLS. And this is our just introduction to our online platform that has associated training modules that you can do in person. And we'll get more into that as we go into the slide deck. Just before we begin the webinar, HUDLS is strictly a CMQCC resource that's only available to member hospitals. So if you are not affiliated with a hospital or if you are outside of California, you are welcome to stay on the webinar and see what it's all about, but you will not be able to access the platform or any of the materials associated with it. So I apologize for that. I don't know if that will ever change, if it will ever be something that can be accessed outside of California for a fee. But for right now, it is only for our member hospitals that are affiliated with CMQCC. This current version that we have released now, and it is up and active, is a beta version. So while we have extensively tested HUDLS for several months now, there's no way to possibly test every pathway imaginable. So if you do run into any glitches as you're accessing HUDLS, please let us know. We do plan to have some future enhancements associated with HUDLS. One of them is a gradebook. Right now, there is no ability for a hospital administrator of the HUDLS program to at a glance see all of the students or all of the enrollees and what they have completed or not completed and what their grades are. We are working through the possibility of integrating or developing a path for integration into existing LMS or platform interfaces. So the objectives of today's webinar are to describe the HUDLS program, to explain how to access the online modules, to show how to access the trainer materials, to introduce the trainer materials, give an overview of the lesson content, and to discuss options for implementation. So what is HUDLS? HUDLS stands for Hands-on Understanding and Demonstration of Labor Support. We created HUDLS in response to a lot of hospital feedback that they couldn't scale up the in-person labor workshops that CMQCC had presented and were actually very well received a couple of years ago. But hospitals were having a really difficult time with trainers that they had sent, with staff turnover, not having consistent trainers, not having consistent resources, possibly being strapped for time and staffing resources, not being able to accommodate a labor support class that took several hours. So with a lot of brainstorming with the CMQCC team, it seemed that it would be feasible and possible to break down labor support training into bite-sized pieces that could be done in a little bit more manageable scale in short little bite-sized chunks so that you could incorporate it onto your day-to-day unit education or possibly put them together in a larger training. The beauty of this program is that it combines online didactic with in-person training. Labor support, I think most of you would agree, is pretty difficult to just read about. It's really sticks with you when you can see it and do it and put your hands on it. And it was really important to myself and to Jan Child, who also helped develop this program as a clinical expert, that you be able to get a feel for all of the labor support training and actually get in there and get your hands on. There are 6 educational modules with 21 lessons total, which sounds like a lot, but we'll go over what all those things are and how applicable they actually are to labor support. It's a little bit bigger than just a peanut ball, right, and positioning. And then each lesson is designed to take 15 minutes or less to complete. And that is the online portion as well as the huddles. So the online portion, each lesson is designed to be 15 minutes or less, and each huddle is designed to be 15 minutes or less. So how is your staff going to access huddles, and how are you going to access huddles? All students have to register for a CMQCC account in order to access huddles. Currently, we do have 1,200 users that are already successfully registered in the accounts program. And if you haven't yet, I'm going to walk you through how to register for accounts. So if you're a maternal data center user, the way you're going to register for accounts is to go to the datacenter.cmqcc.org like you always do when you access the MDC. And you're going to be redirected with this little message that you see in the box here to the new CMQCC account program. You want to make sure that you use your MDC email and password in order to log into accounts, or it won't recognize you and it's not going to give you MDC access. If that happens, it's okay. It's not that you can't get MDC access back. It's just going to be an additional couple of steps. If you don't have MDC access, so this might be true for some of your CNSs or educators, it will most likely be true for a majority of your staff nurses and physicians. You're going to register for accounts by going to accounts.cmqcc.org, and you're going to register for an account, but you need to use your organizational email address. So if, for us, it's at stanford.edu, but we don't want you to use like Gmail or Yahoo addresses when you're requesting access to accounts. If you have physicians that don't have hospital emails, that might, again, require an additional step because we want to make sure that we are verifying that all of the people that have access to accounts have organizational emails, so we can kind of do that as a double verification. When you register for accounts, you're going to have access to all of the CMQCC member resources. So it's single sign-on, so gone are the days of having to memorize multiple passwords for all of our resources. So this is for the MDC, for huddles, and for share, the listserv where we get to swap policies and handouts and all that great stuff and download things. If your nurses don't have access to MDC or your physicians don't have access to MDC, don't be nervous. This won't give them access to the data center. So that box in the middle that says maternal data center won't show up for anybody that doesn't have or shouldn't have access to the maternal data center. That access still has to be granted through the MDC. So when you log into Huddles, this is what the landing page looks like. And as you can see where I put that big red arrow there, that's where you're going to click to request trainer access. So this will be for all of the people or the CNSs or educators, or if you're a manager and you want to check it out and look at everything and see what all the materials look like, this is how you're going to request trainer access. If you don't do this piece, you'll only have access to the online didactic modules and you won't see all of the training resources. Once you click that there, that blue click to request trainer access, it's going to take you to a page that looks like this. And in that type of request box, you're just going to use the drop down to put request trainer access. You're going to put your hospital email, your name, and what hospital that you're from. And then a CMQCC administrator will grant you access. That happens pretty quickly, and you will receive an email saying that access has been granted. So back to navigating the landing page, there's a couple of different things that you can, ways that you can navigate this page. I'm going to go through them all so that you can see what your options are. So the first one is to use these blocks. So when you hover over the different module blocks, it's going to give you a very short description of the course overview, and that's the module in its entirety. The left side of the screen has got your left navigation, and the picture on the left is showing you just the icons, but you can expand the icons, which is the picture on the right that's going to actually show you what all of those icons mean. Another way to see what the icons mean and where it's taking you is to hover over the different icons. Very similar to any left-sided navigation you've used in the past. So when you use that left side to click Train the Trainer, which again will only show up for people with trainer access, you're going to come to this page. So the top of the page says Top 10 Tips for HUDLS Leaders, and that's going to be all of the tricks and tips that Jan came up with as we were rolling out all of these different lessons to help you be really successful in implementing this program, holding the huddles, things to keep in mind, certain things to say, certain things to be mindful of. So very helpful for anybody that's going to be a trainer. And then you'll see the lists of all the different lessons as the trainer section. And then you'll see next to it the associated student lesson. So as the trainer, you want to go in here and prepare for everything. You want to look at your scripts, your videos. You can also just go ahead and click right into the student online didactic lesson so you can see what's being presented to them prior to going and teaching a huddle. When you click on a particular trainer session, so this one is trainer session for lesson D, safe induction of labor. This in real time, again, these are screenshots, but in real time is going to be a web page that you can scroll down and see all of the things that you'll see in the script. But it starts right here with the video up top. The video is, we went into all of a bunch of our California hospitals and filmed these with no actresses. These are all real nurses. All of the different huddle scripts. So we went in there, they got the huddle script, they were able to go ahead and train, and that's what we videoed was the actual training that happened. And we went ahead and put it on the page so that you could see exactly how it kind of unfolded, what the different options are. So let's just see like a clip of what one of those videos look like, and then we'll come back to the screen.
What are some of the things that you can tell a patient triage? I think an educator on how her whole journey.
So as you can see, it's not necessarily important what they're saying, but as you can see, it's going to show you from the beginning of the lesson to the end of the huddle lesson, how the handouts were used, how the different materials were used. In some of these trainings, there's models that we use. In some of them, there's audio recordings for a fetal heart rate. So you'll see exactly how it was done. So in addition to having the script that kind of maps it all out for you, you get this great visual. So I think the idea behind this is really to empower whoever your trainers are, especially if they're not formal educators, to feel like they can really do it, like that see one, do one, teach one kind of model. So as you'll see underneath the video, when you click into it on the Train the Trainer resource, is the huddle script. So that's what's going to tell you exactly what you need for the session, how long you want to spend on each part of the session, and that's a give and take of how long you're going to spend on this part or that part. But it gives you kind of an outline and an idea. Sometimes you might feel like you want to spend a little bit more time on one piece versus another, depending on where your training leads you. But this gives you a nice outline. So when you click that here, that huddle script, it's going to take you to an actual PDF that you can download and print. That looks like this, and this is just one of 4 pages. But as you can see, it gives you the background of this lesson, all the session goals, what the outcomes should be, that beautiful outline that kind of helps you manage your 15 minutes, and then all of the resources, and then it continues on to give you specific scripts like start here, do this. In addition to that, below where you saw to download the huddle script is all of the resources that you would need. So obviously you can't download a pelvic model, but you will be able to download all the handouts. So different lessons reference different pieces of the toolkit, or a different patient handout, or a different handy dandy tool. And all of those are going to be able to be downloaded and printed so that you can, depending on what the lesson is or what your flow is, laminate them and hand them out. Have the nurses have them, or physicians have them as papers to use for guidance, and then use them for reference later on. So it's all up to you how you use that, but everything is in one place. So we don't have you saying, okay, well, go find an algorithm here, or go find a policy for this. Everything that you need to teach that lesson is very conveniently on that Train the Trainer page. On the next part of the left-hand navigation is the My Modules page. So when you click there, it's going to take you to all of the modules and then break down all the lessons. So this also serves as a quote unquote transcript. It is not perfectly printable at this time, but we are working on it. But this is a way that you could have your nurses and physicians screenshot it to show you what's been completed while we are still working on a more perfect system for grade booking and transcripting. So here you'll see under module 1 for not a description, a title of all of the lessons. So it's promoting spontaneous labor. We have the Bishop score, latent labor management, prolonged latent labor and therapeutic rest, safe induction of labor, and coping with labor. Module 2, we go into professional teamwork. So here we have shared decision-making, closed-loop communication, SBAR communication, and shared mental modeling. So while many hospitals have other programs that cover these things like SBAR and shared mental modeling and closed-loop communication, and you may train this elsewhere, I think what's really beautiful about how these were set up is that all of the examples are perinatal examples. They're all things that we actually manage on obstetric units. And so I think they make them a little bit more tangible and a little bit more concrete and like part of our world. And then you really do see how much you can incorporate these professional teamwork tools into everyday communication, which is really all part of labor support. So as we were going through this, I really feel like all the times that we presented it as labor support, people kept saying, oh, all of these things are not really labor support. You know, the focus should be more on positioning, which is all in here. But I think that the communication piece is a huge part of what's missing in support. How have we communicated to the physician why we're doing what we're doing? Why is this position a good place to go? Can we help the fetus rotate? So communicating that has been really well demonstrated in this part of professional teamwork. And I really do encourage you to assign these lessons and not to glance over them because you think your staff gets them in other areas of your training. Module 3 is the first stage of labor, and so you have active labor support there, the labor preferences checklist, labor dystocia, and peanut balls. Module 4 is comfort in labor with your supportive measures, movement and positioning, using the rebozo and nitrous oxide. Module 5 for fetal well-being is intermittent fetal auscultation and Leopold's maneuvers. Module number 6, labor management and fetal malposition resolution. So we did break these down into shorter little bite-sized pieces. Please understand that we know that there is a lot of overlap with these things, but in order to keep it small and manageable, we couldn't keep repeating lessons throughout. So as you go through them and you experiment with them, you'll see that often one lesson will reference another lesson. So it'll say for, you know, please see coping in labor lesson, and it'll send you exactly to where you need to go in order to get that additional information that is kind of a companion piece of the lessons that are here. The next part on the left navigation bar is references. So obviously all of the tools and trainings that were presented on the online modules as well as the huddle trainings are all evidence-based practice. So all of the references that were used to develop them as well as references that are cited within the modules will be found in the references section. The references section is found for anyone who has access to the online didactic. And then also at the bottom of the train the trainer piece, you'll see references specifically for the huddle as well. And this is kind of what that looks like. So it'll break it down by module and it'll say references for this lesson, references for the next lesson, and you can just go ahead and click into that. So all of your staff nurses will have the ability to go ahead and read more journal articles, resources associated with the information that they're receiving on the online didactic. So how do you access the lessons? So there's two different ways that you can access the lessons. On the home page by the module, so where you see the red hour, it says work on this module, and that's going to take you through the lessons in order. So as we said, there's 6 different modules. They're broken down into various lessons. So if you click on work on this module, it's going to take you from lesson, A in that module all the way to lesson E if there's that many lessons within that module in order. The other way to access it is My Modules by Lesson. So if you go to that left navigation My Modules page, you can click on the specific lesson that you want to access. When you do that, every single lesson has specific objectives for that lesson, just like you had within the huddles, you had specific objectives. It'll be listed at the beginning of each lesson. And these are all narrated. So it's not just for staff to read. Unfortunately, you'll have to listen to my voice a lot because it's my voice that is on all of these lessons, but it is all narrated, all of the different pictures, all of the different rationales, everything throughout. In addition to the narration and the slides that you'll see, there's 2 different types of lesson interactions. One is called knowledge checks and the other one is pop-ups. And this is 1 to keep the lesson itself from being too dry, 2 to kind of check where the learner is at, and 3 to provide additional resources and to really encourage nursing staff to be aware of evidence that's out there in journal articles and why they're doing what they're doing. So the first thing we're going to talk about is knowledge check. And so this is just in the middle of the shared decision-making lesson. And then you can see that little purple, with the little hand on it that says knowledge check. The presentation, the narration will pause and the learner will have to click on knowledge check in order to proceed. Once knowledge check is clicked, right there, the question will come up and it'll present the question and the 3 different answers, and then you will select an answer. If the answer is correct, it's green and you get a little star and you can go ahead and continue. If the answer is incorrect, you can either choose to show the solution or retry the question, and then you just press that little blue arrow to advance. The other type of interaction are the pop-ups. So throughout the lessons, we referenced certain articles or position statements, et cetera, but obviously this doesn't fit all on a PowerPoint slide. So we did make it so that these would all be expanded. So as you click on these gray, expand arrows, it will take you to a separate window pop-up where you can see either a PDF and download it if we had access to that. In some cases, the references are not open source, so we were not able to provide that, but it will give you the specific citation and where to go for it. So I'm going to use the ACNM position statement as an example. Separate web page, and this is downloadable. So if you wanted to read more about why we're doing what we're doing, what things are based on, and again, follow the narration, we obviously aren't reading a whole position statement, and you can't read it on the screen. So this way you can go ahead and expand it, and at your leisure, go ahead and read it, take your time to be able to see it. At the end of each lesson, there's a post-lesson quiz. This is what it says at the completion of a lesson. Now it's time for the quiz. There's 5 questions in every lesson, and a score of 80% is considered passing. So if you don't score an 80%, which obviously is 4 out of 5 questions, it will say that the lesson is incomplete. So post quiz, this is what's going to pop up for your learners. It's going to say you got 10 out of 50 points or whatever you have, and your score is the percentage that it is. And then when you see below that on your My Modules screen, it's going to have a score for every lesson that you've completed. And here you see for peanut balls, it's a 20%. And then it shows the time that it took to take that module. Now don't get scared by the 40 minutes. That's because I spent a lot of time tweaking things, and that's my time when I'm playing with it. But all of these modules, again, are designed to take 15 minutes or less, and in most cases do take less than 15 minutes. So different recommended strategies when you're thinking about how to incorporate huddles into your work environment. Think about the prerequisite knowledge. The online segment really should be completed first to enhance the effectiveness of the bedside training huddles. So kind of like, what is all the background information that my nurses and physicians need to be successful in engaging with the huddles, answering appropriately, and really getting to the hands-on period. You don't want to be doing too much teaching during the huddle, so that's what the purpose of the online didactic is for. We recommend a 2-week interval where the unit is required to complete the online piece prior to the rollout of the in-person huddle teaching. Who are your ideal instructors? We ask you to consider a peer-led team of bedside nurses to enhance culture change. I always say that we know these nurses that are on our units that kind of have more of a vocal presence when it comes to labor support, or they're really interested in a more quote-unquote natural labor. So how can we tap into that as a resource? Teams of 2 or 3 staff nurses from different shifts can work together to blitz all the staff with the huddle training. And I know this is a question that's come up several times where, you know, there's just too many nurses to get through. There's no way that the educator can do all this. Well, the way to do that is kind of have our nurses become the trainers. And that really, really helps them own the project, helps them own labor support, and to be able to firsthand see the impact that they're making on patient care and a reduction of C-sections. Your CNS or educator can be involved as acting as the coach, training the trainers, making sure that everybody's comfortable, that can be backup for answering questions that maybe are not embedded within that lesson, mentor the team, provide feedback, encouragement, and any administrative support with like questions associated with why there's maybe a problem with huddle, something's not working right, or a video's not playing right. Videos. So the videos are meant to be used as examples for the instructors to learn how to lead the huddle. So we really, really discourage you from using these videos to show your staff in place of holding the in-person huddle. I know that might be tempting, and in some environments, absolutely necessary if you don't have the resource to have any kind of person that can moderate this. In those cases, I really would appreciate it if you would reach out to me to let me know that you're having a real resource issue, that you don't have any ability to hold these huddles in any way, shape, or form, and we can maybe talk about some ways to work through that. But the videos are not intended to be used in place of that in-person training, and you're probably not going to get much bang for your buck that way. What are practical implementation steps? So I recommend that you form a labor support education team. With 238 hospitals, every environment is a little bit different, and your team is going to be best able to make the assessments of what will work best within your facility. The whole purpose of huddles was to make this work everywhere. So how can we make this work everywhere is being really flexible about what might work in this environment versus another environment. And again, I'm happy to help you walk through that. You want to review all the lessons. Is there a need to omit any training? Do we have a anesthesia department that if we say the word nitrous oxide, one more time, they're going to completely lose it? Is that going to be something that creates some kind of negative environment on your unit? Should we maybe omit that, at least for right now? Are there any lessons that should be prioritized? We have nurses that are really asking about peanut balls, or patients that are really asking about peanut balls, and we are at a loss to know how to incorporate them. Should we prioritize that lesson in some way? What works in your facility? What's your staff volume? What's your bandwidth? How many nurses do we have that are already sort of engaged in this process? How far have we already gotten with labor support? Should we do 1 lesson at a time? Should we do 2 lessons at a time? Can we do on-unit huddles where we grab, 3 to 5 nurses and go, hey, let's pop in a room for 10 to 15 minutes? Or do we need to group them together in kind of like a skills training and say, okay, now we're going to do several huddles, within a 1-hour period or 2-hour period, because that's what's going to be able to work for us. That's how our resources can best be managed, and I can get all my trainers together or get them organized. Develop a training schedule, train the trainers, and then roll out to staff. Please provide us with the feedback. Again, this is a beta version. So if you run into complications or problems as you're trying to move through the online lessons, there's problems with any kind of playback or download for the train the trainer pieces, you won't hurt our feelings. This is your resource. So we made this for you. So we want to make sure that it's as usable as possible. And if there's a better way to download something or to get something or to access something or see something, we would really love to hear that, so that when we make iterations of updates on this resource, that it is what you want and what is going to work best for you. I want to thank everybody that was on the Huddles team. This was a very, very big project that I don't think CMQCC has ever quite taken on from soup to nuts like this. I want to thank Catherine Andrews on the technical side, Jan Trowell for being an amazing clinical expert and really leading all of these Huddle trainings beautifully. I really feel that you're going to really fall in love with the train the trainer pieces of how easy they are to use, how fun they are, and how engaged your staff is going to be in them. I hate to speak for all of the hospitals that were involved in filming, but I have to. But they all had such a great time, and we had such wonderful positive feedback from them on how engaging these trainings were and how it really motivated them to take on labor support beyond the lessons that we even filmed in their facility. And thank our technical team at Fibonacci. The following hospitals volunteered for us and are on our videos: Anaheim Global, Mission Hospital, Palomar Poway, PIH Whittier, Riverside University, Scripps La Jolla, St. Jude, USC Verdugo Hills, Torrance Memorial, and UCLA Santa Monica. Thank you so much. It was such a pleasure being within your little homes and letting us film you and being our actresses on the red carpet. And then contact information. So as you run into problems, problems, what you're going to do is click contact on the top of the page and within the Huddles website. That's going to take you to that little box that's going to say feedback or support. And then you're just going to type in the box what the issue is. You can also contact me and Valerie, and that's our contact information there. So with that said, Valerie, let's go ahead and do some questions. I hope I didn't leave anything out, but you'll let me know I know it.
Okay, so we just had a couple questions that we'll address first, and then so if other people have questions, now's the time to type it into the chat box. One question was, who should be the trainer? Who should get access to train the trainer?
Yeah, so train the trainer access, I mean, initially should be, you know, the leadership on the call. So whoever the managers, CNSs, and educators are, and then think about who you want to pull into your team. You know, I was in that education role where it seems like you want to be in control of everything, but I would say that this is a really good opportunity for you to kind of spread this training out among your kind of power nurses. So are they your clinical ladder nurses? Are they your nurses that have kind of an affinity for labor support? I would even say it's a great opportunity to bring some of your newer nurses on. You know, if they see one, do one, teach one, that's going to really change the culture of your unit. So obviously that's up to you, but we've really recommended that you spread this among your staff nurses and make them trainers. But, you know, we can't dictate that.
So on the next question is on the hospitals where it was filmed. Was that Riverside University or UC Riverside?
I believe it was Riverside University.
Okay. And will the training be mandatory for CMQCC member hospitals?
No, not at all. So I know that there are several hospitals that have already created their own very robust labor support training. So this was just for hospitals that were telling us that they didn't have the bandwidth to create that. The staff turnover was so obstructive that they couldn't, you know, get anything off of the ground. So we just make this as a resource. There's absolutely no requirement whatsoever to complete this. This is for you. Maybe if you have a very robust training once a year, that you might want to just, you know, do some refreshers on a couple lessons at your facility, but by no means do you have to use this.
Okay. Are the handouts available in Spanish to share with patients? And are there CEs available for staff?
There are no CEs available. We've talked about that. I don't know that that's going to be coming on the near horizon, but we've talked about it. There's a couple of complications with CEs and small bites like this. So we do have to talk about it a little bit more, but at this time, no, there's no CEs. Spanish handouts, a couple of the things are available in Spanish. They would be the more general, like March and Dimes kinds of handouts. I think that there aren't too many patient handouts on this, but I will double check on that. Valerie, can you write that down as a question? Catherine,
Sure.
ask. I'm not sure if all of those things got uploaded or not.
Okay, and the recording will be available probably by Friday on the CMQCC YouTube channel. So you can just go to youtube.com and search CMQCC and the recording will be there. We'll also have the slides available through our share website, and they can be accessed there also from this presentation. The next question is, can each staff member make an account in HUDLS to do the online didactic?
Yes, each staff member has to make an account in order to do the online HUDLS didactic.
Okay, and a comment, I think it's so important to teach family members to do labor support measures so that they are the ones that make the tight connection with each other. Is this incorporated into training?
Yeah, we definitely do reference family throughout the training, but we can't train the family. So it's, I mean, at the rate, I mean, we can, the nurses can, but the resource isn't patient facing. So it definitely is nurse facing, but it definitely discusses family involvement.
And the next question, to verify each face-to-face huddle is 15 minutes. Is the goal to complete each model and then do the huddle, or complete all 21 lessons and then group huddles?
Okay, slow down. Can you read that in parts, Valerie?
Sure. To verify, each face-to-face huddle is 15 minutes.
Correct.
Is the goal to complete each module and then do the huddle, or complete all 21 lessons and then the group huddles?
So I would do lesson and then huddle associated with that lesson.
Okay. There's a question about whether CMQCC will be making more programs like this for other CMQCC issues besides labor support. I would just say that we want to make sure that this really works for everybody, and that the beta part goes away, and it will all depend on what the needs are, and staffing issues and funding and those kinds of things. But I'm not going to say yes, and I'm not going to say no.
But I love that feedback, and it's, I mean, I'd love for you to share that with us if there is an educational whole or resource that you're looking for. I mean, I don't know necessarily that we'll develop it, but we might, or we might contract with someone who also already has something out there. So if there's something specific that you're looking for, I'd love to hear that for sure. I know, Valerie, you too, right? I mean, this
yes, exactly. Yeah, definitely. One of the things that we're trying to do is to get the responses from member hospitals about what some of their educational needs are, so that we can provide additional webinars of this type, not necessarily online learning platforms, but educational webinars or newsletter articles or snippets that will help with some of the questions that you have, or updates about certain things, for example, for hemorrhage or preeclampsia changes. So we are collecting ideas from hospitals so that we can prioritize what you might need and provide information and education in a manner that's the best suited for the hospitals. So someone just said they wanted to say thank you for all the hard work this must have taken. The robust curriculum is needed and such an amazing asset to me as an L&D educator. So thank you very much. We appreciate that feedback.
Yeah, that's, I mean, that's wonderful. I hope this is getting to the meat of what most people need. But again, please share with us, because it was really a consistent frustration that we heard throughout the collaboratives, really being able to incorporate past the peanut ball. And so it's a training deficit that we took on, and it's a big project, and I really hope that you love it. Get in there and play with it, play with the online didactics, and play with those train the trainer pieces, which I can't stress enough are the beautiful gold of this program. And really let us know what works and what's not working. Because again, this is your platform. This is your resource that was created for you as a member hospital as part of your membership. So we want to make sure that it's working. It doesn't serve us at all to create something that it doesn't work for you.
Are there any more questions that people want to pose to Christa or myself? Is there any modules that we might put together on taking care of patients with a high BMI? As you said, at this point in time, we don't have any other modules, online learning modules planned, but I can put that in our list of topics. There are some specific things for patients with high BMI that help with labor process. Is there anything that's addressed in these modules, Christa, to address that?
No.
Okay. Advice to incorporate physicians and garner MD support.
So we actually do have one video, maybe two, now I'm thinking about it, but definitely one that did have a physician in it. So we even went to one of our filming hospitals where a physician was really engaged in being part of the whole learning module. So I'm not sure that, I mean, if you could get the physicians to do the didactic piece, but I would say go ahead and pull them in the room for the huddle. You know, and make it, they're fun. I mean, wait till you see them, they're fun. Everybody has fun with them, and it's kind of a good bonding time on top of actually being an educational piece. Kind of incorporates that and models that teamwork between physician and nursing.
There's another question. I feel like a lot of labor support measures are geared now to the patient with an epidural. Have you addressed the need to move as much as possible before the epidural?
Yes. Yeah, these are, I mean, that we definitely address the patient with epidurals, but we definitely, there's a lot of movement stuff in here as well. I mean, I would almost say there's more things for encouraging, you know, early labor movement and active movement, positioning and shower and all of the different activities that occur prior to an epidural. But then if an epidural does happen, different positioning techniques, et cetera, peanut ball that can be used with epidural.
And I would just say, you know, in going through some of the process that we do to review some of the modules yesterday, I took the module 3 that included the peanut ball, and I'm not a clinician. This is Valerie at CMQCC, and I'm not a clinician, but I felt like it really did talk a lot about movement and how to use the peanut ball when patients have an epidural. And
Penny Simpkins' book is widely cited throughout this. So if you're familiar with the Labor Progress Handbook, that's very, very movement focused.
Any other questions that we can answer for those attendees today? I will send the slides out and get them posted. So for those people who are asking about the slides, they will be posted and available on the CMQCC website or somewhere, and we'll let you know where that is. And if you need them today or are really anxious for them, you can email me directly. You can see my email on the screen there. It's vcape@stanford.edu. I'd be glad to send them out to you. Christa, any other comments that you'd like to say as we close?
No, I just hope that you really like it and it's what you need. And if it's not, please let us know so that we can make the tweaks that are going to make it work for you.
One more question came in. Any specific resources you'd recommend that for patient family resources that you'd recommend?
Lamaze International.
Okay, so check in with Lamaze International for their resources.
A lot of those resources are also embedded within the references in huddles, the Lamaze International stuff. But I think Lamaze International is great patient-facing material.
Okay, great. Well, we thank everyone for joining us today. Tomorrow you will be getting an email asking you to answer a few quick survey questions on Evaluate this webinar so that we can make it better for you. We appreciate if you could take just a couple minutes to do that for us. And thank you for joining us today. And with that, we'll sign off and the webinar will end. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.